We are excited to be here in another episode of the Midnight Founders podcast with the one and only Tyler Jennings. I don't know anyone in this state who doesn't know who Tyler Jennings is. He is a masterful person that can bring together people and events and just build projects that people get behind and support. So super excited to have you in studio, Tyler. Right now, you're working on multiple things. It's hard to keep track of all the things you're doing, but you're with the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, Go EO, which you're doing some incredible things there. You've created the reference group. You're doing a lot of cool things at Utah Valley University with Sandbox and a little bit of adjunct work as a professor. So, Tyler, we're glad to have you on the show. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate what you're doing to continue to build the ecosystem, and congrats on the success of the podcast. It continues to scale, and
Thanks.
appreciate everybody who's doing hard work to spread the good word.
It was a slow burn to begin with.
It was. And it does take, all boats rise with the tide. It does just take that consistency and just staying focused on what your true core value system is, right? And your mission. So
Yeah, and I try and tell that you mentioned the students. I tell that to them all the time. Is like you have to be super clear on what you're trying to accomplish, because if you don't have a North Star of where you're going, it's so easy to get lost. And the challenge for all of us is, when you look at your life, what are you going to push towards? Like, what outcomes are you driving? I was an economics major at BYU, so I was taught relatively early. You have to look at all of the variables and all the constraints, and you're trying to maximize your happiness or utility in economic terms across the multiple variables. It's not a one size fits all. What works for AJ will be different than Jake or Tyler, and how we're going to measure success in our life is going to be different depending on like that equation for each of us. So I tell them all the time, don't compare yourself to someone else. Try and be the best you. Like, it's great to have inspiration from these people. Like, I will always be inspired by Alexander Hamilton. Like, that play and that book and that whole thesis of living, this idea of being nonstop is, core to who I am. But it's not nonstop on one vector, which sometimes you see incredible people get nonstop on one vector. Ryan Anderson here locally, Filevine, I just interviewed him, and one of the things that I took away from that is he knows what his mission is. His mission is to be a Fortune 500 company headquartered in Utah. And I'm grateful someone like Ryan exists.
which we don't have any of those.
Which
so
we don't have any. So
that
it's a
would be
big deal.
incredible.
You guys know what our largest company in the state is?
I don't know. Is it Qualtrics? I'm not sure.
Extra Space Storage.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Extra Space Storage is our largest company.
Dang.
And they're at 30.
But they're very quiet. They're under
Very
the
quiet.
radar, aren't they?
You would not know that.
Mhm.
But I think it's very interesting for us as a state to realize, like, there's so much opportunity for us. But our largest company, and it's 3-4x larger than the next closest, is Extra Space Storage.
And
So
they've dominated. I mean, you see them
Yeah.
everywhere across the nation.
Correct.
That's
But but when you look at that founder, Ken Woolley, it was not like he set out to go be a storage magnate. That's not his passion. But it's funny what happens, and like the energy and momentum you can create when you have somebody with very clear vision, clear expectations and goals.
And focus too. I think focus is really important as well.
Yeah. So when I've been in Utah for a little over 5 years, and when I see the ecosystem, the inspiration for me to actually come back, I left in 2008. I was actually offered a job by Apex Alarm, which turned into Vivint at the time, to like lead out on new business development. And like where they were going to go. I was working with a fresh out of BYU MBA named Jim Nye, and we talked about home automation and packages, and Sean Brenchley and Todd were friends, and they were like, hey, you should come work with us. I actually chose to leave Utah in 2008 because I didn't think you could have a great career here at the time, graduating from BYU. And I was like, I'm going to join this large company with 30,000 employees. And I spent the next 12 years outside of Utah, but coming back every summer and coming back for Christmas sometimes, and watching Ryan Smith and Qualtrics. My brother Troy worked for Ryan from 2010 till now. And just that Qualtrics growth really inspired me to be like, wow, what is going on here?
You could feel it, couldn't you?
Oh my gosh. It was palpable. It was incredible. And eventually I got, inside of this big company. I'm in leadership. I'm running a division of the business focused on data centers. And they got mad at me for growing too fast in a quarter. And I was like, I'm too wired to be a builder.
Where was this at?
I was in Connecticut. It was
You were
a
in
company called
Connecticut.
LeGrand.
Okay.
It was during COVID. There was a lot of things going on for my family where my kids weren't going to school. They couldn't go to parks. They couldn't be on a soccer field. I was like, we went down to South Carolina for a few weeks, And like COVID didn't exist as we went further south.
They were very much on the extreme side.
100%. So I was like, we have to move. My wife and I had, but going back to where I started on this idea of like, how are you going to measure your life? One of the deals my wife and I had made was when our kids got to middle school, we'd stop moving. She had moved with me very kindly to Orlando. We lived in Windermere right by Disney World, had a great time. Lived in San Diego right by Legoland and Disneyland, had a great time there. We lived in Connecticut, 2 hours to Cape Cod or Vermont or Boston or New York, had a great experience.
So it sounds like you're choosing the vacation spots and you're like, let's live there.
Yeah. No, it actually worked out really nicely where we've lived in some really cool places. But when it came right down to it, it's like, okay, where do we want our kids to grow? And for me, where do I believe there's so much room to grow for me as a person, but also to impact a market and a place where, there's really just so much potential. And, I think Utah is obviously at the cusp of that.
How many students would you say feel the same way that you felt, back when you graduated? Like, hey, there's not enough for me here. I need to go elsewhere to seek opportunity.
Yeah, I would say 15, 20 years ago, that was a pretty standard belief.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, I would say most of my friends, like when I look at my best friends from freshman year at BYU, we were all from different places for the most part. We all went and had careers or went to business school across the country. But over the last 5 to 10 years, have found their way to Utah, which is really fascinating because I would not have guessed that. But what has happened is an ecosystem and a leadership and a consistent form of government. I was just talking to one of the leading law firms that handles the family offices of billionaires and multimillionaires. And they're based in Miami, but they came to Utah because they've seen the growth and consistency. And there's people who are very nervous that a state that is normally operated one way will flip. As you see within our national federal government, like there's quick flips. And so it's hard to build a life when there's quick structural leadership changes. You look at California, look what's happened there. The amount of people leaving. Sergey Brin, I think just announced that he left. Like Elon's left. So many people have left.
Yeah.
And like Utah has a few really strong things. And one of them is consistency of style and government and leadership. And so now within my role within the governor's office, I really have the opportunity to be like a Utah salesman, a Utah spokesperson. We're going around the world, building relationships with sovereign wealth funds and family offices on a global scale. And when you talk about why they should invest in Utah, there's some real meat there that we can say that has not been true of other places.
I know you work a ton with students, and I think that this concept is really fascinating because there's no chance that you could have drawn this path that you've taken, like looking back, right? And that you'd end up today. And I'm sure the extra space storage guy would say the exact same thing. Like, I didn't intend to do this, but it's awesome that this is where we ended up.
Which, by the way, we need to get him on the podcast, don't we?
Yeah, it'd be a cool story.
Ken Willie, right?
Ken Willie.
But I love your tagline on your LinkedIn that says adventure awaits. How do you explain that to the students? Right? That like, get started, do something, entrepreneurship is about the path and the journey and like determination. So how do you get that message across the table?
If there's anything that I look for in the young people who like apply for the program or the ones who are in the program that, whether it's in their startup that crushes or in their career, it's bias to action. I try and like really hone in this idea. And adventure awaits communicates this thesis of like, you're moving, there's progress. The biggest risk is the overthinking, the not willing to move. I haven't figured it out. I need this business plan just right.
Or waiting till it's perfect.
Yeah. In our world today, you can act so quickly and you can iterate. I have one of my teams who wears an AI pendant and has it directly connected to their Claude cowork. And as someone is talking and they're getting feedback from a customer, the pendant is taking what they're hearing and iterating it into a product that they can see and feel and touch.
Wow.
And the speed by which you can iterate on an idea is not like anything that ever existed. And the opportunity here is the Startup State Initiative used to do a pitch competition where like you could pitch an idea, the business idea challenge. And I love the fact that someone has an idea, but now we've changed it to this idea of a builder day and a hackathon. And what can you actually build in 24 hours? And we're awarding prizes based upon what you can build. Because we have to stop being about ideas and we need to be about movement. So when you go back to my LinkedIn tag and adventure awaits, it's this idea that life is meant to be lived. And life is meant to be going down a path that's worthy of like pursuits that matter. Like the Theodore Roosevelt quote about, being a man in the arena.
In the ring, yeah.
And like that is so important to me and like this life. Don't live a life where you're bored. Don't build someone else's dream. Get to the point where you know well enough who you are and what matters to you. Because that dream for each of us is different. And just because, I'm trying to live mine doesn't mean that you can't go live yours in a complete way. We can all live our dreams. But it's just a matter of getting to the point, and I tell the students all the time, is how quickly can I help you find out why you're on earth? You're on earth for a reason, and only you have your unique set of skills. How do we get to the point where you're figuring that out? Because this whole entrepreneurship journey, maybe you build something great and maybe you don't, but you hopefully are getting closer to figuring out what makes you tick Hannah, or what makes you tick Abby or Connor or Stevie or any of my other students. Like, my whole goal is to help you get closer to figuring out like what brings you joy and what's the manifestation of you that comes out in your work.
There's nothing you could do that would build yourself faster than entrepreneurship.
Or reveal who you are, really.
Right. You're going to experience so much growth in entrepreneurship, like personal growth, that even if you don't build something cool, you're building something cool, and it's you.
100%.
You have built yourself.
Well
No,
said.
I feel that deep
Well
in my
said.
bones.
Right.
I feel that deep in my bones, right? Because at the end of the day, we were talking about this right before we got on. Like, I know I don't want to be Ryan Anderson. Like, I love him. I will shout his name and praise him for what he's building and putting all the effort into building. But I can't, and I'm not wired to sacrifice Saturdays and Sundays in the pursuit of building a business. I enjoy being the soccer coach.
And you're okay with that.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't envy him. I think one of the things that you have to get to in life is where you can celebrate someone else and what they've built and their wealth, if that's what it translates to, and not, feel like that makes me a lesser person. I am just making a decision, and my math, in terms of what I'm trying to live, is different than his. And I'm grateful that people like him exist. I want every entrepreneur to understand, if you want to be a billionaire, you want to go build something massive, here's the sacrifices you're making. That's why I do reference group. It's because I want them to decrease the gap between what they think they can be and the people that they put on a pedestal. Because Ryan isn't perfect. He'll tell you that. He has imposter syndrome all the time. He believed that he doesn't have it all figured out. Greg Levesque at Strider, Nate Walkingshaw at Taurus. I can go down the list of the unicorns in the state of Utah who I've sat down with. And when you peel it all back, they have a belief that they'll figure it out. And that is the number one thing that is consistent across all of them, is they believe they'll figure it out and they're willing to work to figure it out. Doesn't mean they don't have doubts. Doesn't mean that there aren't days where they're like, what the F am I doing? But they still consistently show up and put in the effort. That's what I try and ingrain in all my students.
Yeah, I love this. I love this concept that, you're all about not just pedagogy and not just ideation, but action, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of goes back to your mission, kind of the Clayton Christensen mission of how do you measure your life. And I love that you're very consistent in just go do something. And I really feel like the world today, that we're so inundated with AI, that people want to see that raw, that authentic build and kind of see you struggle a little bit because it's real and it's honest, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that a little bit.
No, what's really interesting is people say, how did you start this? It was because about 3 years ago right now, I was at home and it was the NBA playoffs. And I was like, I want to bring a situation where I can bring my friends together. And instead of it being over at Buffalo Wild Wings or at the Jazz Arena or in a jazz suite or whatever the venue might be, I want it to be where it's like us connecting, but also learning. And the conversations that my friend and I would have in the sauna or cold plunger or at lunch, I wanted other people to get to hear
Glad
that
to hear I'm not the
conversation.
only one that does that.
I wanted other people to get to hear that conversation. And I was like, because there's so much value in the conversation, but if we can make it real and make it authentic. And I think that one of the other things I didn't necessarily love about the networking that I had seen is I felt like there was always an agenda and there were things going on where there was either a cost or a sponsor who was hard selling or something like that. And so I wanted to create something, which I know from the premise of reference group, it's a Harvard study. It's a sociology term that says the number one predictor of your success is the people you surround yourself with. And that is the only consistent across all variables. is who are the people that you measure your life against. And if you surround yourself with good people, your reference group, then you're more likely to achieve all of the things that you want. But if you or I are like surrounded by friends who, are bringing us down and trying to keep us in the bowl, that's the number one predictor of not having a great outcome. So I started this premise of reference group over at Sol Agave, like texted 30 friends. They showed up. We shared the cost of the dinner. We had a conversation, and that was it. And to now look at the opportunities that idea that I just started with and kind of pulled the string and continued to pull the string and what it's turned into and the opportunities it's presented for me. I mean, it was kind of a surreal moment when I got to interview Mark Cuban, who's been like my kids and I have watched him for the last 15 years on Shark Tank. But when it's me and Mark and the director of Health and Human Services on a stage in front of 5,000 people,
That was
at
incredible,
Slopes,
by the way. Great conversation.
Thank you. But it was like, I could not have guessed that me acting on a small idea about bringing my friends to dinner would turn into that. And now I can't say too much about what we're planning for next year or the people who have committed for next year, but it is absolutely incredible what happens in anyone's life when they choose to go down a path of trying to create value and not doing it with like the personal motive being the primary factor. I haven't made a dime off reference group. Like that's not what I do it. Kind of like we talked about.
You can feel it too. Like the different networking groups that I've been a part of or gone to, or the networking events that I've gone to, you can tell when they're financially motivated and when they're not. And this one, that's why I love reference groups so much.
Same.
Oh, thanks.
And you've gone from the top of the state in Logan all the way down to St. George with it. I mean, it's incredible what you've done.
No, yeah. The platform I have now is just such a privilege. And I really appreciate Jeff Moss and him giving the platform now to be at GoEd and be able to go and take Boost and reference group across the state. And
because he's really supporting it that way.
100%.
From a government standpoint.
100%.
Right?
So, I am employed by the governor's office of now economic development. So I have a day job. So when we talk about the other things that I do, it's all within the context of it all supports the entrepreneurial ecosystem for our state. So my role is how do we make this the best place for an entrepreneur to build? What are all the things that need to be in place for that to be real? And so one of those vectors is how do we help the next generation of entrepreneurs believe it can be them? And there is not a better thing that I found that is getting to see the real, raw, true part of the billionaire or the person that you aspire to be. Like when you know that they're just like you, it changes something in how you think about your potential. I remember being a 22-year-old kid, 23-year-old kid at BYU, and I was working with the President's Leadership Council. It was everybody at BYU who donated over $1 million a year. And I was the student liaison for like part of that program. And I remember thinking, wow, these guys are so smart and such geniuses. They must have it all figured out. And what I quickly learned over time as life has gone on is just because you're rich does not mean you're different than someone else. In some cases, it's really just an appetite for risk. And I would say the ability to properly weight risk is the number one thing for who's rich and who's not. Because
that's fascinating.
The people who understand risk appropriately price it differently than like, and when I say price, I mean like the poker version of price. Like I know the odds of me winning this hand and I can properly make this bet or not.
They can mitigate risk in the right way. Is that what you're saying?
And they're not scared to take on a risk.
Yeah, I love that.
When you're scared to take on risk and you want everything to be just straight and easy and center, that's the person who will not be wealthy. I mean, and however you define wealth, because when things are always just right in front of you and safe and easy, there's no growth and there's no development and there's no, in my opinion, action of significance.
Yeah.
We go back to that adventure awaits idea.
No, it's fascinating. And I love that, going back to kind of what you said earlier, and Jake, you as well, is, when it's something that's done just to add value to the community, you can feel it. And that's actually why this podcast exists. We have purposely not taken on sponsors or any money just because we want to show, like you're showing, young students, hey, you can be like this person. And here's kind of the back end side of how this person operates. We're doing the same thing with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Hey, you could be an entrepreneur as well. And look at some of the stories. I mean, more than not, we see in the community, hey, this glossy version of everything's perfect with this founder and they made billions or millions and whatever. And it's like, we'll never get to that level. But at the Midnight Founders podcast, we're looking at the back end side of how they built their companies and all the bumps and the hurdles and those midnight founder moments when they're up at midnight, like, I don't know how we're going to make payroll, or I don't know how we're going to get this shipment in, because that happens to everyone. And it's just like you
Yeah.
said, if you can get through that gracefully and impactfully, then that's what makes you a winner.
Are you familiar with the 1 marshmallow, 2 marshmallow study that's done?
Yeah.
Oh, we love it. Yeah.
I think the thing that people might look at, like my journey, what I've talked about, and think that I'm not benefiting personally from this. But the thing that I would say is, because I've behaved over a long way in a way that was benefiting others, the opportunities I have at this point in my life are insane. And
And well deserved, by the way.
no, thank you. But what I would say to those people who are like, Tyler, you're an idiot for not monetizing or whatever, like, I don't have to monetize the main thing. And there's this idea of core and context in a life. Like, my core, like, value creation, I don't have to monetize that because of the context of the ecosystem around it, if that makes sense. There isn't a large service provider or venture capital firm who have not approached me at some point. And I think the opportunities that, like, surround what I do, and because I've put myself as the point of a convener and a connector, like, those relationships are worth a lot. And I think in this world where AI is going, the in-person events and the in-person relationship is going to be the rare thing. Mark Andreessen just posted about this on Twitter yesterday. Like, what has become, like, what, now that this is becoming so abundant, what has become rare is going to become more valuable. And I am so bullish on, like, because of the value I created, what the opportunities for me and the type of life I get to lead over the next 20 years is, like, one I'm so excited for. I just get to do really fun things right now.
That's cool.
And
Authenticity.
And I want to make sure people just understand that, because being your true, authentic, like, purpose-driven self does not mean that you have to live the life of a pauper or whatever. Like, you can have everything that you want, and you're just going to see it a different way. And I think the more that young people or entrepreneurs who are in the process of building, who feel like they need to be someone else, you're going down the wrong path. Because I know plenty of investors who want to invest in real and authentic kids. We had the global demo day for Sandbox. We had the 23 best teams from around the ecosystem all present here in Provo.
It's amazing.
And the thing I say, I was sitting next to multiple venture capitalists and angels as we're, like, going through. I'm like, hey, which ones are your favorites? The three were not consistent across the group about who are their favorites. And what resonated about each one was different. And some of the ones who were probably the worst presenters actually had the most love and the most interest in investing. So I say this just because everybody feels they need to act a certain way, or they need to be like this archetype of what a founder is. It's just not true. Like, the most important thing I can tell people is be yourself, know who you are and who you aren't. Surround yourself with people who are good at what you aren't, but not exact copycats of you. Because if you find all people who have the same skills as you, then the details will fall through the cracks. So I think it's just super important for all entrepreneurships to be honest about who they are and who they aren't, and don't try and be someone you're not.
Yeah, you don't have to hide it. That's
Yeah.
the thing that's so
Love that.
fascinating to me.
It really is true.
We have, so we do our pitch competition every year in June, and it's a golf tournament, and it's coming up. We're excited for it. But I'm surprised every year about the team that wins. And, you know, it's not necessarily the team that I would have picked. You know, when we were evaluating all the companies that applied, I usually have a couple that I'm like, I bet they're in the top 3. I bet they're in the top 3, you know. And I've been surprised.
What's your
every
hit
year.
rate on that?
Never. It's not never, but like,
But like 50%?
I've never picked the winner.
You've never picked the winner. Wow.
Yeah, I've never picked the winner. And
That's awesome.
I think it's just, you get into it, and the people that are the most authentic are the ones that do well. And I think the day of that flashy pitch business idea is gone.
Yeah. No, I 100% subscribe to that belief. And I would say, like, the more that we help, and that's why when I look at the resources and the effort I'm putting behind when I think about my state budget, it's about how do we get you to revenue? How do we get you to building as fast as possible?
Right.
Because the authenticity and, like, this idea of having to be a great pitch person, I think is pretty much dead.
Yeah.
You do need to be a storyteller. You
Right.
need to be clearly able to communicate, but you don't need to, fit an archetype anymore.
I love the concept of switching it from a pitch competition to a builder day, though, because
Yeah.
I do think that that's where most people face their first hurdle in entrepreneurship is they spend way too much time over analyzing something. And the success stories that we've had on the podcast are so fun to hear when they just jumped in with both feet.
They
didn't,
sold and didn't even have a product.
yeah, they
Yep.
didn't necessarily like have it all worked out.
Yeah,
Like the
that's
MVP should be embarrassing.
Yeah.
Great.
You should look back at what you launched the first time and be like, that was terrible.
Yeah.
So
But you know what's funny is I think with AI now, it doesn't even have to be terrible anymore.
yeah,
Like you can vibe code your way to something that communicates the thesis at 70% fidelity or
Yeah.
80% of the final product,
It's
way
true.
way faster and way quicker than anything before.
Which is different from even a year ago.
100%.
That's amazing.
And that speed is not slowing down.
Yeah.
it's wild what AI can do.
There's not a better time to build.
It's and all the cards are really in the favor of the entrepreneur at this point.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
And if you listen to the All In podcast, those guys are some of my favorites. But one of the things that they say is today is the worst it's ever going to be. It's not like if you properly understand that, it's only getting better.
It's only getting better.
The speed with which you can execute is only getting better.
Yeah. Tyler, two questions, and it's kind of a dual part question, but the first part is where does this master connector ability, the superpower in you, where does this come from? And then number two, the second part of that question is, and you're utilizing that now at the state of Utah in tremendous ways. I'm assuming Utah is probably leading the pack across the country in what we're doing for entrepreneurs as a state, right?
Yeah. The first question I ask at reference group is always, what makes you you? And the things that, when I look back on my life that have been the most defining, was I was the oldest of 6 kids in 7.5 years, no twins. So leadership and this idea of like having to
You had to lead the family
be
almost.
around a lot. But the second part is very connected to it, is we moved a lot. I moved going into 3rd grade, 4th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade,
What did your dad do?
and senior year. So I moved a lot. My dad was corporate McDonald's.
Okay.
So we've lived in Mexico City. We lived in 3 places in California, 2 around Chicago, Virginia, North Carolina. And I say that because I was naturally like a social person. But I would say the moving made me a more empathetic person. I learned how to be friends with kids that were Magic the Gathering, like aficionados, and the jocks, and the Nirvana kids, and the rapper kids. Like I could kind of hang with everyone. And as I moved, I could find a way to connect with almost everyone. And so as much as I did not enjoy those experiences, when I look at my life now, that was the only way I could have learned what is, now my superpower, right? We all have those superpowers, and the experiences that we have growing up kind of determine which way we go. But yeah, it definitely was something that was a mix of nature and nurture. And in this case, nurture was just the environment I was put in. It's hard. I went from being a place junior year of high school where me and my friends kind of ran the school to senior year where my first week I was eating lunch in the library or in the bathroom, not knowing anyone. So having to start over is no joke. But it created a situation where I was forced to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I either had to push through my anxieties or my fears and make friends or not. But that was part of life that I've definitely enjoyed. But when you talk about Utah, this is what gets me excited. We are in the process of launching the first ever institutional investor portal that a government has done. Back in October, we were in Dubai, and we were meeting with the Minister of Trade. He has the responsibility for making sure and accounting for $140 billion of investment from the UAE to the United States every year for the next 10 years. And he's like, Tyler, you've convinced me we should invest in Utah. How do I do this? And when you get that question from somebody with that much capital to allocate, you're like, well, let's figure out a way to make this as easy as possible.
Let me get back to you.
I'll tell you
have a good
very
answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Stand by.
yeah, we partnered with a local firm on an investor portal tool. When, as I mentioned, we're now at the point of onboarding local opportunity sponsors across 14 asset classes. So we want to be able to go to Dr. Thani Al-Sawar at the UAE and be like, here is a tool with real estate, data center, tech, pick your asset class, oil and gas, real energy, land development, whatever your thing is. Here's all the ways you can allocate into Utah.
Wow.
And that is the first of its kind. And we're super pumped about that you will be able as the state to show the global investment community how you can allocate into in my opinion, the number one place to invest in the United States. When you think about consistency of growth, the employee base that you have here, the government that
Conservative
is
nature.
business friendly, conservative,
Yeah.
and business friendly. And I just feel like there's so much opportunity because we have like those factors that you really can't, just make up or try. You have to have years of consistent effort.
When will
feel
you
like
go
we-
live with that?
I feel like we were a well-kept secret for a while, and I
Yeah.
just don't feel like we're a very well-kept secret anymore, which is a great thing. It means, a lot more opportunities coming to Utah.
Yeah, when I talk to global capital allocators, like if they've come to the United States, historically it's Miami, New York, LASF, and how Austin's starting,
Austin.
Texas starting to get there.
Yeah.
But really, like when you think about Park City, and you think about the beauty and some people's familiarity with Sundance, there's no reason why Utah can't be a Davos-like setting. We have the opportunity to congregate a global conversation here. We have the beauty. We have the hotel hospitality figured out.
The infrastructure, really.
I'm really bullish on what we can do to make this a place where the global capital allocators congregate.
Well, and as the Olympics are coming, in the next 9 years or so, that'll even help give that some more oomph
100%.
behind
crazy.
that initiative. So when does all this go live and you start mainstream promoting this?
So we are launching it in a real way. We're doing an event with a lot of the local funds on May 13th, where we're introducing them to the tool. So probably around the time that this goes live,
Yeah.
or maybe even after.
We can
this goes live.
we can make sure it's out there. By
We'll
then.
work it. Yeah, we know a guy. We'll work it
We
out.
do know a guy.
But yeah, we're 2 weeks away from the formal launch of it, and then from there we'll take it over to the UAE and the other interested groups and start really going to town with
That's
this.
exciting.
My goal is to
amazing.
get $5 to $10 billion a year of foreign capital into the state of Utah.
And it's just ongoing. It's just
Consistent.
recurring.
Yep.
Wow, that's incredible.
Okay, I want to go back to what you said about growing up. I think it's something that's been on my mind a lot lately. I have 3 kids, 13, 10, and 8, and they're kind of, they're still in those like formative ages where, the decisions you make as parents make huge impacts on who they become as people. And you talked about, the unintended consequences of moving around so much.
Yeah.
Right. How are you balancing like the entrepreneurship and coaching soccer, but also teaching your kids about entrepreneurship? So like not having it impact their life and be like, I'm never going to be an entrepreneur because my dad's never around, but also like, immersing them in that entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, listen, this is a topic I'm super passionate about because when I think about what I want my kids to understand, I bring them to Boost. I bring them to Reference Group. I want them to see like what this looks like.
I think one of them even met Mark Cuban the day you were
Oh,
there.
they
Is
all
that
met.
right?
They all met. Mark
They all
Cuban.
met him.
They all
Okay.
met Mark Cuban.
That's cool.
I will take them out of school so they will have like defining memories in their lives. One of the happiest moments of my life was at my first Boost. It was we did Boost a couple months after I started as a professor at UVU, and I realized, okay, I really need to do something to help these students realize they're not that far off from who these people are that they dream about being. So school starts in August. We're doing Boost on November 14th. I'm like, oh crap, I gotta like, I've never done a big conference. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, let's try and figure this out. Throw it together. We get it done. At the end of the day, some of the students are wanting to take pictures with me. And I don't realize this, but my 14-year-old son at the time is like the last one in line. And he gets to me and is crying. And he just wants to give me a really big hug because of what he's seen and what he's felt. And as a dad, it was one of the most special moments of my life because he sees and feels the love and energy that dad has. And he gets to witness it in a way that is only earned through experience. Like there's no story or lesson I could have shared with him that was more impactful than what he witnessed. So when I think, Jake, for your kids, it's what do they get to witness? Nothing you can say will match what you can do. And I just had this experience with my 14-year-old daughter where I got to take her and 15 of her friends in a party bus up to Park City. And
Could have been a limo. I'm just
could
saying.
have been a limo.
We've done that.
Throwing that in.
Well, that's really cool that you've done that. But the most beautiful part about being a parent is I got to do things because of the effort I put into other people. More people were more than willing to let me borrow a party bus and to go into their office in Park City, which was like this really fancy showroom, and give these girls an experience that they are all raving about. And it's still like this topic of conversation amongst the friend group. And so like, I just believe so much in life is let your kids see it. Don't tell them about it. We need to feel, we need to observe. And as you're going through these like important things, Jake, like you should bring your kids to that golf tournament. Like, how do you let them see what dad does? How do you let them see like what it looks like?
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Good
That's
idea.
a good idea.
We had that recently at our house where my son, he's a senior in high school and lacrosse guy and getting ready to serve an LDS mission in Chile. And couple of months ago, he's like, Dad, I really think, we have this little fun side hobby business, the limo company, and the kids love it. And it's fun, keeps them busy. And, they take care of the vehicles and stuff. But he's like, Dad, we should start a YouTube channel. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, what do you think? How should we do this? And he had all this plan. And so we built this YouTube channel. And then 2 weeks ago was prom, and he's like, Dad, we're going to do a dance in front of the limo with all of our dates, and it's going to go viral. I'm like, okay, well, let's see how it goes. They did it, and it did go viral, and it was kind of fun. And I'm
Wow.
like, Ashton, look at this. This is so
Oh,
cool.
that's amazing.
So I 100% subscribe to what you're saying is, not only talk to your kids about it, but let them be part of it. Let them be active in it. And it makes all the difference. And now he kind of owns that. And he's like, look what we created, and he shares it and talks about it with all of his friends. And anyway, it's kind of cool, to see them
that's so cool.
just develop like that.
I mean, out of all of the things that I hope can be true about my life and this idea that, what I'm trying to be is I really just want to I'm going to define success more by their success than by mine.
Well said.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, this has been really fun, Tyler. I mean, again, there's so many ways we could go in this podcast, but I like where it's just kind of, meandered in and out of some of the things you're working on and some things you're passionate about. If you were to give one piece of advice to students and or entrepreneurs or founders that are building something, I mean, you've already talked about be your authentic self and be true to who you are. But what would, and maybe that's part of it, but what would that advice be, or that piece of just conversation or I don't know, just that thought that you want to leave with them?
Look up Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA. So just type in Jensen Huang, pain and suffering. Like that's what I would want everyone to understand.
I'm going to do it right now.
Look it up right now. It's about a 2-minute clip. He's at Stanford. He's talking to a bunch of Stanford students.
Okay.
And he says to them, he's like, you need to understand that we within NVIDIA look at the term pain and suffering with great glee and joy. And unfortunately, pain and suffering is a requirement for success. It's not a nice to have. You must go through pain and suffering.
No shortcut.
There's no shortcut. And I want everyone to understand, I didn't get these superpowers without pain and suffering. I didn't get anything I wanted in life because it was naturally handed to me. Pain and suffering has been a part of it. I've been on my own financially since I left high school. I worked as a server for 40 hours a week at my senior year in high school because I wanted to go to BYU and have some money. Nothing that I've got in my life didn't come with pain and suffering. And if you can look at pain and suffering as a blessing instead of oh my gosh, why do I have to go through this? The quicker you can get to this idea that it's hard, and because it's hard, that means good. It's not hard and bad, it's hard and good. That would be the thing I would want everyone to know, because if you're doing something hard, that means there's not a lot of people who are going to follow you on that path. And that's where,
That's your moat.
that's where it happens.
So change your mentality, change your paradigm.
Hard is good.
That's
Says,
cool.
I wish upon you greatness, which by my way of saying it, I wish upon you plenty of pain and suffering. I love that.
Yeah.
He
I'm going
is
to
a
listen to that after.
He is a smart and incredible leader. What he's built with NVIDIA is just unbelievable. They're on their way to becoming the biggest company in the world,
If they're not already.
if they're not already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler, thank you. This has been fun. Definitely a different podcast than we normally have. We
For sure.
didn't really dive into your history at all, but I think was a very valuable conversation. And yeah, thanks for being a part of it.
Where do people reach out? How do they find you? How do they get involved? Tell us all that.
Yeah, sure. Tyler Jennings on LinkedIn is where I'm most active. Feel free to reach out to me on there. tjennings@utah.gov if you have any specific entrepreneurial questions. If you want to participate in our hackathon, I am actually giving away $10,000 around this idea of what does the entrepreneurial journey map look like for the state of Utah. So I want to make an AI agent that will be for every entrepreneur in our state to know all of the resources that exist for them in terms of like, how can the government help? How can the Small Business Association, SBDCs help? Who are the people you should contact? How do we, if you're looking for a job, here's all the companies that are hiring in the state of Utah. Here's a visual map of all of them across asset classes. So it'll very much align with our investor portal tool. So May 8th and 9th, we're giving away $10,000 for the person who wants to hack that.
So it aggregates all the resources into one.
And allows you to like interface with your direct information. So
Very cool.
instead of it being like abstract or you having to go to a website and search through 200, files, we're going to bring it to your fingertips.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, good luck with the build, Tyler, and we'll keep seeing you on stages and interviewing amazing people and doing all the great things you're doing in Utah. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.